Good evening everyone, I am Vishal Salsekar and today we are going to discuss the News Today articles for 28th and 29th of September. Right. So in today's News Today discussion, we are going to cover 6 important articles in detail, which includes the first article regarding India's leading role in the Global South. So we'll see that what exactly is Global South, how that differentiation is there, and basically what is the role that India is playing as far as the Global South is concerned. Right. The next article that we are going to see is regarding the newly designated Ramsar sites. We'll see regarding what is the criterion for the Ramsar site, and further we are going to see that what are certain basic details regarding this, because this is an important article from the perspective of the prelims examination. The next article is regarding the world network of the biosphere reserves. We'll see that what is the criterion for the biosphere reserve and which are the recent designated biosphere reserves as far as the India is concerned. We'll going to see regarding the importance of the same also. The next article that we are going to see is regarding the Stampede situation in Tamil Nadu. So recently we have seen and observed that different parts of the countries are facing the issues like Stampede. Whenever there is any celebration that is going on, maybe religious festivities, the stampede is becoming a very common problem. So the administration has an important role to play as far as the stampede is concerned, and we are going to see how that particular things can be done. The next article is regarding the ozone pollution. So you might have already seen regarding the good role of ozone, which is from the perspective of the stratospheric ozone. But in this article, we are going to see ozone as a pollutant, which is the bad ozone, right? The last article in this is regarding the indigenous 4G stack. So India has joined the elite group of 5 nations where it has rolled out its own entirely end-to-end 4G stack. So that is very significant achievement from the side of India, right? And after this, we are going to see the personality in news, where we are going to discuss regarding Rani Rashmoni, and then there are certain other quick updates that we are going to see. Is it clear? Okay. So let's start the discussion with the very first article, and a very important article, because when you will see the recent UPSC examination paper, this year only there have been 3 questions out of 4 in the international relations. To some extent they are talking about the issues of Global South, right? So when the UPSC is focusing upon this particular topic, obviously from the exam perspective, this is very important. So we should be having an idea regarding what exactly is this particular term, which is Global South, and what is its relevance, where these particular countries are facing difficulties, and what are the way ahead in this particular regard. So at UNGA week, India hosts the high-level meeting of the like-minded Global South countries. So India in the recent UNGA meeting, which was the 80th meeting of United Nations General Assembly, there the External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar held the meeting with their counterparts in regard to the Global South, and specifically the developments that are concerning Global South. Now from the perspective of examination, GS paper to international relations, it is having direct linkage, and directly or indirectly this is a very important topic from the examination perspective. So India's role in representing and uniting the Global South, advocacy for the reform in UN, IMF, WTO to reflect the developing countries' needs. These are certain areas that you can also think about, right? Now in this particular map, I have included this map. This is a very important thing, and you are able to see a line which is an imaginary line which is dividing the world into 2 parts. So this line is also sometimes known as the Brent line, right? So this is a virtual line that is representing the differentiation between the developed countries, which is considered as the countries of Global North, and the developing countries, which are representing as the countries of Global South. Now, how this particular line was drawn? Basically based upon the larger developmental status, as far as the issues like poverty and many other things, including the per capita income, when that were considered, it was observed that it is a trend where this particular line, more or less above the equator, this particular line represents the dividing line between the Global North and Global South. There are certain exceptions. For example, Australia, which is in the southern hemisphere, is lying in this Global North because of its connection with the developed countries and also the support that it has got, right? But more or less, when you will observe that generally the countries of the global south are belonging to the part of the southern hemisphere, or to some extent we can say the countries below the Tropic of Cancer. They are the part of the global south. Now, this particular term, when you are hearing this global south, this term was coined by Carl Oglesby, basically in order to depict that these are the countries which are showing some kind of similar traits as far as the issues are concerned, as far as the technological development are concerned, or basically the level of development in these particular countries. These countries show to some extent the similar attributes. That's why he classified these countries under the ambit of global south. You might have already heard that previously we used to talk about the first world, second world and the third world country. कभी कभी आप सुनते हो ना कि in the context of India they are using the term that these are the third world countries. Is it depicting exactly the status of the lower or the least developed countries? The answer is no. Once the World War II was ended, basically the world was divided based upon the ideologies. So those who were part of the capitalist faction, they became the first world countries because they were representing certain ideological trends. Then the countering ideology at that point of time became the ideology of the second, basically you can say the second world countries, generally not that much shown, but the third world countries more predominantly you might have seen. अब देखो, this kind of classification in the political domain and other domain was already going on since the Russian Revolution, more predominantly started after the Second World War, then when the world was divided into two poles. But eventually in 1991, when the USSR got dissolved, now the second world comparatively got disappeared, and then there was only first world and the third world countries. But that was not depicting based upon the level of development. That's why आप बोल सकते हो कि डेवलप्ड एंड डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज वाला क्लासिफिकेशन भी था रिगार्डिंग द WTO एंड मेनी अदर ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस, बट यस दिस इज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट प्रोमिनेंट एंड विच इज वाइडली टॉक्ड अबाउट इज द डिफरेंशिएशन बिटवीन ग्लोबल नॉर्थ विच इज कंसिडर्ड एज द कंपैरेटिवली डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज एंड द ग्लोबल साउथ विच आर कंसिडर्ड एज lesser developed countries or the aspirational countries which are developing now, which shows the potential, but to some extent yes, they are showing the similar characteristics amongst each other. That's why this Brent line is dividing them. I hope that this particular thing is clear to you. Now, when we talk about the global south and the emerging world order, we have talked about that global south. The term was coined by Carl Oglesby in 1969. Not that important, but yes, to some extent, pata to hona chahiye who has coined this particular term. And the Brent line, which we had seen on that particular map, is dividing between the global north and global south. Now, most important thing is what is the role that the global south is going to play in the present or the emerging world order. See, world order is simply the arrangement of country based upon their relative power. Now, the power is political, economic, social, cultural, all the kind of power cumulatively is deciding their role in this particular world order. Higher the power, higher is the role. Lower the power, lesser is the role as far as the international order is concerned. Now, when we talk about the role of the global south countries, the important role can be divided under these particular four headers. The first important role is the multilateral reform. Now see, when the world faced the World War II, after the World War II, there was certain world order emerged, where the countries which were predominant countries were the Western countries. That's why the world order was also decided based upon the same. But later on, with the arrival of the non-aligned movement, and eventually when in 1991 the USSR got dissolved, after that there has been emergence of the globalization, and outproduct of that particular globalization is rise of multiple countries. There was China, there was India, there was Southeast Asian countries, and that's why there were many countries rather than just two blocks which became relevant from the perspective of global order. That's why the multilateralism emerged. The organizations like UNGA, the organizations like different other important organizations where different countries were playing their role, they were still representing the world order, which is the order of the 1945 when the World War II got ended. Now, when we are talking about the role of the global south countries, now don't you think so? Those countries which were not having that much power at that point of time in 1945, but presently when we are sitting in 2025, they are now having significant power. Be it India, be it China, be it any other country of Africa or Latin America, right? That's why they want the multilateral reform, because right now the organizations are not representing these countries. The UNSC is not as per the present global order. There is no permanent status for India. Even the organizations like IMF and World Bank are not at all representative for these particular countries, because as of now, the quota based upon which the funding is being provided to IMF, that particular quota is also tilted towards the developed countries, where more than 40% of the voting rights or the quota is available to them, and that is not adequately giving representations to the countries like India and the African countries. That's why these countries are talking about the multilateral reforms, right? So reform in the global governance institutions. Next is the economic power. Now don't you think so that when these particular countries are depicting the large amount of population, whether it is India, whether it is China, whether it is African countries, where the population is significantly rising, in that case, these countries represent the larger market. When these countries are representing larger market, don't you think so that these countries can become the potential economic powerhouse? Because when it is depicting market, then in that case, the other countries are going to come in these particular places, establishing their own industries, right? Or helping these countries in order to get developed, because the market will be created. So economic powerhouse, because the large consumer market and the young workforce, because the skilled and the other workforce is also vastly available in these countries. And on one side, when the developed countries are facing the demographic issues, these countries can supply the workforce to the larger countries, right? The next is strengthening of the multipolarity. See, right now, it is not a unipolar or the bipolar world order. It's a multipolar world order. Though there are certain fragmentations or fractions, but yes, it is a multipolar world order. Now, in that particular case, when you are talking about the role of different countries, as I have already talked, like China, India, Southeast Asia, the countries like Japan, the countries like Latin American countries, the countries of Africa. Now, in that particular case, there has been the strengthening of multipolarity has been observed, because there, when the large number of countries are there, they are also collaborating with each other and they are forming their own institutions. For example, some countries which are predominant in the global south came together and formed the BRICS. In that particular grouping, they have formulated the bank or the financial institution in the form of New Development Bank. Then there are certain other institutions that were there. For example, the African Union, the collaboration of the African countries, there is the countries of the Latin America came together, Latin America and the Caribbean island groupings, right? So there are many such groupings that are getting formed at the global level. And the groupings which were already there, which were previously representing the Western countries' interest, but now there has been changing status. For example, there is G20, the inclusion of African Union in 2023 India Summit of G20, that represents the significance of the strengthening of the multipolarity. The last is the sustainable development. So here also you can see that the role of the global south country is very, very important, because there have been south-south cooperation, whether it is led by India, whether it is led by China. There has been different blocks that are being created. There have been different developmental institutions that are being created. So we are able to see the South-South cooperation, even the critical cooperation, whether it is poverty, whether it is poverty alleviation, food security, environmental conservation. These are the prominent avenues where these countries are cooperating. India is supporting a lot of African countries in order to ensure food security, in order to ensure energy security, in order to ensure the infrastructural development. So there is also the collaboration and the sustainable development which is going on. Also, when you talk about the institutions like International Solar Alliance, then the Coalition for Disaster Resilience Infrastructure, all these initiatives says that there have been a sustainable collaboration and development between these particular countries. Now, when we are talking about the role of India specifically, India is playing a very important role. You might have heard of one particular summit which has been organized recently, which is known as the Voice of Global South Summit, where the different countries across the world which are member, or see, it is not a formal construct. When we are talking about global south, ऐसा नहीं है कि ये एक कोई group है जिसमें select number of countries हैं. It is basically a larger construct which is giving representation to any country which want to associate themselves with the idea of global south. That's why in the Voice of Global South Summit, multiple countries are getting representation. They are coming, they are discussing their issues and trying to find out the solution in that particular regard. So India hosted these particular summit. Now, when we talk about the economic cooperation, India is increasing trade relations. So whether it is through BRICS, the promotion of the local currencies, or basically in the form of bilateral and the multilateral collaboration, or even in the form of minilaterals, India is supporting the economic cooperation. Small groups are there. Whether it is basically with respect to the collaboration with African Union in the context of digital infrastructure, or the digital collaboration, or food security, whether it is the Latin American or the Caribbean countries, whether through East Asian policy, India is supporting and India is collaborating with the Southeast Asian countries, right? Then the development assistance is being provided. So through technical and economic cooperation, India is providing funds with respect to the ITEC programs. Apart from that, India is supporting the infrastructure development, sometime directly or sometime in collaboration with some other countries. So for example, there was a project which is known as the Asia-Africa Growth Corridor, where India and Japan were collaborating with African countries in order to boost the infrastructure. Lines of credit means there is a specific fund that is provided to them. Now these countries can utilize that particular fund as and when they need. Capacity building means supporting these particular countries in their own initiatives. Then the multilateral engagement, leadership in the form of the multilateral organization. So already we have discussed regarding this when we were discussing the role. So India is supporting through the multilateral engagement, for example, International Solar Alliance, then the Coalition for the Disaster Resilience Infrastructure, through the HADR initiative, and also the policies like Sagar, which is security and growth for all in the region, and Mahasagar, which is mutual and the holistic advancement of the security and growth for all in the region, which is the expanded form of Sagar, which covers the even extended neighborhood in the Indian Ocean region. Because when we are talking about global south, we are talking about the countries which is sharing the proximity with India and also having the similar characteristics, right? And also apart from that, G20. So these are the countries through which and the multilateral engagement through which India is cooperating. Lastly, the diplomatic bridge. Since India is not only going for कि भाई हम एक तरीके का agenda represent करते हैं, we are also acting as a bridge between the global north and global south, because we are collaborating with the developed world also on many such issues, whether it is defense, whether it is technology, whether it is cyber security, whether it is artificial intelligence. But on the same side, we are also providing developmental support to these countries which are comparatively lagging on some pedestal as far as the technological development is concerned. That's why India is acting as a diplomatic bridge, which is policy of strengthening autonomy, engaging with both West and the global South. दोनों के साथ India is cooperating. So this is the role of India's engagement in the global South. Now see, these are the type of question that UPSC had asked. Directly or indirectly, they are trying to bring the perspective of global South. Read this question. Reform process in UN remain unresolved because of the delicate imbalance of the East and West, which is talking about the global East, global West, right? And the entanglement of the US and the Russo-Chinese alliance. Examine and critically evaluate the East-West policy confrontation in this regard. Now here it is talking about the East-West. So if you are having an idea regarding this, because this was the previous construct when it was talked about that Western countries are considered as comparatively developed countries, Eastern are considered as comparatively developing countries, and also they are under the influence of the Russo-Chinese alliance. Now, in that particular case, there has been a question that can also be asked regarding the global North and global South. India-Africa Digital Partnership, this year question, again a question emphasizing upon the role of India in the global South. African continent is representing the global South. In the last few decades, where the Asia's growth story, the next few are expected to be the Africas. In the light of this statement, examine the India's influence in Africa. So the global South partnership, India's support is very, very important in this particular regard. The next article is regarding the two wetlands in Bihar recognized as the new Ramsar site. Now see, I'll tell you that this is an important article, a factual one, where certain concepts are also involved, but it is very, very important from the prelims perspective. I'll tell you why. Because environment and ecology is one such thing UPSC is focusing upon a lot these particular year. Roughly 17, 18 question oddly, they are coming every year. in UPSC prelims examination. So in that particular case, these topics, when such topics comes in the current affairs, these becomes very, very important from the examination perspective. So from GS paper 3 also, it is important from environment and ecology, conservation, environment pollution, degradation, EIA, and then biodiversity, protected area network, and the international conventions like the Ramsar Convention. Then GS paper 1 also, because there are certain concepts like geographical feature and their location that can be also asked. Now, what are the new wetlands that were being talked about and that got the designation in the Ramsar Sites of India? And see, there is one such factual thing that India is holding the largest number of Ramsar sites in Asia and third largest across the globe, right? So there are Gokul Reservoir and Udaipur Lake, both are in Bihar, that got recognition as far as the Ramsar sites are concerned. Now see, with this, India got now 93 Ramsar sites. Now dekho, as it's not practically possible to remember name of each and every Ramsar site. But what is important is when these sites are there in news, when these got the recognition this particular year, so you should have some idea regarding this. Max the following UPSC can ask, even they can ask regarding certain geographical features which are associated with these particular wetlands of international importance which are designated under Ramsar, right? Now both the wetlands are the Oxbow Lake. So that's why the concept of Oxbow Lake, which is the important concept as far as the geography is concerned. So in the physical geography you are going to read. So let's see this particular diagram through which you will be able to get the Oxbow Lake. So you can see that in this particular case, this is a river stream, right? So if you will see over here that this is a stream that is getting represented like this. Now here on the both side there is land and this is the water body. Now when the water is flowing in this, when it is flowing like this, so on the inner wala side, the inner currents are comparatively slower one and the outer currents are comparatively having more speed. So there will be more erosion on the outer side and more deposition on the inner side. So you will be able to see that this will gradually get more and more eroded. Similarly here also, when it is going, so it will be the inner side will be getting comparatively lesser current speed and the outer side will receive more current speed. So yahan se erode hoga and here it will be deposited. So like this cycle will go on. So there will be a situation comes when on, because on this side also it is the outer side and it is the inner side of the current. So like this there will be a situation come when erosion itna ho jayega कि this stream will be completely cut off and this lake will be like this. मतलब the supply of this particular region or this stream will stop and this will become as a stand-alone water body and water will start flowing like this. So in this case, what I am trying to tell you that this stream will be like this, it will be flowing like this water and then this particular lake will be cut off over here because extreme erosion ke baad this region will combine and this will give rise to the stream. So in the last diagram that you are seeing, this is the stream and this is the Oxbow Lake which has been cut off because of the excessive erosion and deposition, and that's why this Oxbow Lake is getting created. So you should be having a brief idea regarding how these particular Oxbow Lakes are created, and in this particular case which is regarding the recent designation of certain Ramsar sites, in this case the both wetlands are the Oxbow Lakes. Now total Ramsar sites 93 of actual thing. Bihar also had previously certain sites. So see how UPSC trick with the questions that they might ask you that these are the first two sites of Bihar as far as the Ramsar sites are concerned. The answer is no, because already there were 3 sites in Bihar. So the previous sites include the Kabar Jheel is there, Kabartal, then there is in the Begusarai, then Nagi and the Natki Bird Sanctuary in the Jamui district. So already there were 3 and now 2. Total sites in Bihar are now 5. What are these 2 sites? These are the Gokul Reservoir which is in the Buxar district. Which particular river ke side mein? It is in the sides of Ganges, right? Or Ganga river. Udaipur Lake which is in the West Champaran surrounded by the Udaipur Wildlife Sanctuary. The question can be asked. Now see how UPSC can make the location important. There was Udaipur Lake which got the Ramsar sites. Now UPSC can ask about the Udaipur Wildlife Sanctuary. They can give you a statement that match the following, that this sanctuary state. They can say Udaipur Wildlife Sanctuary, Rajasthan. You might think that Udaipur is in Rajasthan. That's why it might be correct. The answer will be wrong. So like this UPSC tricks. There is a species which is the pochard which is also known as Aithia farina, right? So in this case, this species can also be important. It is a bird species. So it is also a region which is hosting the large number of the migratory species, right? Now this diagram is talking about the wetland and the classification. So there may be both type of wetlands. Inland bhi ho sakta hai and coastal bhi. What are the inland? Which are over the land which is within the country, not sharing any coastal borders, right? So it can be natural also, like the lake, pond, maybe the cutoff meander. We have talked about the oxbow lake, right? The swamp, marshes, waterlogged regions, right? And the man-made also, like the reservoir or tank that you have created long ago, and now it is hosting the large number of biodiversity. So see, wetland are basically the region which is partly or fully submerged in water. Basically, that region is holding the large amount of biodiversity that is performing a lot of function. Maybe the water filtration, maybe support to the biodiversity. These are the important features that designate a region as the wetland. Now, basically, based upon that wetland, that can get the recognition from the Ramsar site if it is fulfilling one of the 9 criteria which are mentioned in the Ramsar's criteria. Maybe holding the large number of water birds or large number of biodiversity, or an important region which is doing the functioning of hosting the diversity, or a important region from that particular regional perspective, right? When we talk about the coastal region, estuary, lagoon, creek, coral reef, these are the natural coastal wetlands. Man-made be aquaculture, salt pan, these can be the man-made wetlands. So why I have told you this? Because the question can be asked that the wetlands are always naturally made. So this will be wrong, because the man-made can also be the wetlands. Now, when we talk about the convention, which is the Ramsar Convention of 1971, and Ramsar Convention gets its name from the Ramsar city of Iran. So the name comes from the Ramsar city, jahan par ye convention adopt hua tha in the summit of UNESCO. That's why it was initiated in an intergovernmental treaty under the aegis of UNESCO. So it was adopted in 1971, came in force in 1975. When India joined in 1982. Though in this particular thing, we can say that India is one of the earliest member of this particular organization. Now, the framework of the conservation and the wise use of the wetland and its resources. So the purpose kya hai iska? What is the purpose of the Ramsar Convention? That there are wetlands, designating them as the wetland of international importance is for the purpose of conservation of those particular wetland by recognizing their value, and in order to protect them from getting depleted, because already there are a lot of wetland and these particular region are getting depleted. And wise use of the wetland, because the wetland is also performing a lot of tasks, whether it is carbon sequestration or providing the fresh water. Many things are being provided by wetlands. So when it is providing a lot of ecosystem related functions, so there is a wise utilization of that. That is also important. Now, India is having the highest number of the Ramsar sites in Asia. There are certain criteria which are provided in this Ramsar site designating list. So a wetland who is fulfilling at least one of the 9 criteria which are mentioned over here, like regularly supporting 20,000 plus or more water birds, or conserving biological diversity, or hosting a large amount of biodiversity, maybe anything that can be designated as the Ramsar site. There is a nomination from the side of country, and eventually then that site can get the Ramsar recognition. Now, one thing which UPSC can also focus upon is the Montrex record. Now, this Montrex record is basically within the ambit or the aegis of Ramsar sites, where this represents that there are certain wetland, because of the excessive utilization or human interference, their pattern of these particular wetlands are getting changed. And when this particular issues are happening, maybe a chance in future there can be a devastation of that specific wetland. So that's why to preserve them, to focus more upon that particular region. So the Montrex record is under that particular aegis. There was Chilka Lake which was put and kept under the Montrex record. Later on it was removed. But right now, which are the 2 sites in India which are under the Montrex record? Which is the Keoladev National Park in the Bharatpur, Rajasthan, and the Loktak Lake, which is in the Manipur. So these 2 wetlands are part of the Montrex record site. So UPSC can ask that there is no Montrex record site in India, or there is only one. So the answer is 2. Clear? Now, how UPSC had asked the previous year question: if a wetland of international importance is brought under the Montrex record, what does it imply? changes in the ecological character have occurred or occurring or likely to occur in the wetland as a result of the human interference. We have discussed this only. The country in which the wetland is located should enact a law to prohibit any human activity within 5 kilometers. So other are incorrect. The A is the correct answer. Try to find out why A is the correct answer. I have already given you the answer regarding this. The other options are giving to some extent certain other aspects which is not exactly representing the Montrex record. This is regarding the article of. The next important article is the article of India's Cold Desert Biosphere Reserve included in the UNESCO's World Network of the Biosphere Reserve. We have already discussed about the important lists that are being released by UNESCO. The World Heritage Site is one such prominent thing, and whenever any site is getting designation in the World Heritage Site, there can be question asked by UPSC in this particular regarding that site, also regarding the criteria also. Similarly, when the India's Cold Desert Biosphere Reserve included in the UNESCO's World Network of the Biosphere Reserve, the designation, who is giving this designation of the Biosphere Reserve as the Biosphere Reserve under the World Network of Biosphere Reserve, that can be asked, and even regarding the location of this particular region can also be asked in the examination. Again, important from the environment, ecology, conservation, environmental pollution, degradation. So from GS3, environment and ecology, this is a important topic. Again, this is more important from the prelims perspective because the locational and other aspects which are conceptual one, here the UPSC can ask about the questions which are conceptual in nature in the prelims examination generally. So the Cold Desert Biosphere Reserve in India is a part of the 26 new sites of the UNESCO's World Network of the Biosphere Reserve. So total 26 sites that were designated. In that, the Cold Desert Biosphere Reserve, that is part of India, specifically spread into the states of Jammu and Kashmir, and the Jammu and Kashmir there is the region of Leh Ladakh, and apart from that there is the region of Himachal Pradesh where this particular Cold Desert Biosphere Reserve is situated. Now India with this designation has now 13 UNESCO's Biosphere Reserve. Now see, India itself designated many other Biosphere Reserves also, but these 13 are under the UNESCO's Man and Biosphere Reserve program, MAB program, which was initiated in 1971. Now along with this there is a Sao Tome and Principe, which is a island country on the western side of African continent. You will see a small island country that is also designated as the entire territory has been designated as a Biosphere Reserve. So a small island country, entire country is designated as a Biosphere Reserve. Now since the location is important, that's why the important thing is to get a clear idea regarding this Biosphere Reserve, the location and the characteristic feature. So it is the first high altitude cold desert Biosphere Reserve. That means it is at roughly more than 4,000 meter altitude pe, and that's why it is representing a cold desert type of Biosphere Reserve. Now it is one of the coldest and the driest ecosystem which is there in the world. So one of the coldest and the driest because of multiple things. One such thing is altitude. Another thing is because when the monsoon winds are coming towards this region lies on the leeward side of the mountain. So all the rain bearing wind, they shed their rainfall, and when they are entering in the leeward side, these becomes dry, and that's why when this region pe these winds are reaching, they are comparatively dry, and hence this is one of the coldest and the driest region as far as the UNESCO's World Biosphere Reserve related list is concerned. Then the location, regarding the location, you can see it is in the Himalayas, which stretches from the Ladakh region comprising the Leh and the Kargil district to the Kinnaur, which is Spiti Valley, Kinnaur district in the Himachal Pradesh. So these are the location which is having or which is consisting of the Cold Desert Biosphere Reserve. Now the Pin Valley National Park is part of it. Then the Chandratal is there. Then there is Sarchu is there. There is Kibber Wildlife Sanctuary. So these are constituted in the Cold Desert Biosphere Reserve. Now the Cold Desert biome, which is having the characteristics which is of the rain shadow zone. That means the rain is not taking place, because already whenever the rain bearing winds that are approaching to that region because of the altitude of Himalayas on the windward side, that particular rainfall is there. On the leeward side, these are becoming dry. And another thing is the high elevation because of the obviously the altitude of this particular region. Now Apart from that, there are certain other characteristic feature regarding the culture, because this is a prominent region where the Buddhist influence is being observed, right? So there are gompas, which are the monasteries, which are the kind of universities or the learning place regarding the Buddhist monks. You might have seen in many such places, maybe the movies and all. Okay, so like this, the gompas are there, then there are chorten is there. So they are the type of stupa. So in the Ladakh region specifically, or in the Tibetan region, specific type of stupa is being observed. So they are known as the chorten. Apart from that, there is money walls that are there. These are the long, thick platforms, or the like the rows of stone. So they are the boundary wall type of thing. Now, apart from that, UNESCO have already recognized certain intangible cultural heritage. So there is Buddhist chanting in Ladakh, which also got the status of the UNESCO's World Heritage, but in the form of the intangible cultural heritage, right? So UPSC can also ask regarding certain performing arts or other, which is in the form of intangible cultural heritage, right? Apart from that, which are kind of fauna that is available, because flora तो generally बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं पाया जाता. So fauna के context में there is snow leopard, then there is Himalayan ibex, there is blue sheep, Himalayan wolf, golden eagle. These are the specific fauna that is available in this high altitude, highly mountainous region. Now, what is this World Network of the Biosphere Reserve? So it was launched under the ambit of the Man and Biosphere program in 1976, when the first site was designated as the Biosphere Reserve under this particular program. So with this, there was network that was created of the Biosphere Reserve. Now this MAB, which is the Man and Biosphere program of UNESCO, it is an intergovernmental scientific program. Why this particular program is there? In order to ensure that basically your relationship between the nature and human, how that particular relationship is being governed. So to establish a scientific basis for enhancing the relationship between the people and their environment, how the people influence the environment, how the environment is influencing the people. It is also including the synergies between the human societies and the natural ecosystem, so that basically the people and the their ecosystem can coexist. There should not be a such thing that we have to completely eliminate the people or the human presence within that particular ecosystem in order to conserve them. So the people are made as a stakeholder in this particular process. Clear? Again, very important thing from prelims perspective, UPSC had asked certain question in prelims. The most important strategy for the conservation of biodiversity towards together with the traditional human life is in the establishment of Biosphere Reserve, Botanical Garden, National Park, Wildlife Sanctuary. You have to tell me what is the correct answer of this question, which was asked by UPSC. The next article is regarding the Stampede situation which occurred in a political rally in the Karur, Tamil Nadu. So see, whenever there is a movie launch, there is a stampede situation. When any team is winning IPL, there is a stampede. When there is any celebration is going on, there is a stampede. When there is any specific procession going on, whether it is any specific religious place, so in that case also there is stampede. So this is more a phenomena which is related to the human behavior, because sometimes when we are overly going towards something, it can be any specific thing, it can be a cult figure, it can be any specific personality, it can be a political leader, it can be any other individual or any institution. So in that particular case, if the law and order is not properly managed, this can result into the situation. Now you can see how the people are arranged. Is there any evacuation mechanism you can see? Many a time what happens that when we go to a fair or any other place where there is a large number of stalls that are there, but when you see surrounding you, there is only crowd that you are able to observe. Many a time this situation happens. Have you ever thought of this? That if, God forbid, any specific situation occurs, how you are going to get out of that particular place? Because then at that panic situation, everybody want to go out, and that creates a large amount of stampede related things. So it's not only about the human behavior, it also has to do a lot with the public order. So public order, who is responsible for the maintenance of public order? The responsibility of the civil servant, right? So as a civil servant, you have to think that if you stuck in these kind of situation, what would be your response? If you are in the managing positions, what kind of precaution you are going to take? Because the case studies can be asked in the ethics also regarding this. Now from the perspective of UPSC, obviously from the case studies perspective in GS4 ethics, it can be asked. Apart from that, GS paper 3 disaster management, because these are nothing but the man-made disasters, right? So the disaster management, disaster and disaster management, crowd management, risk mitigation, use of technologies, NDMS guideline, these are the important thing regarding which the question can be asked. Now, what is a stampede? If in very brief terms, if I tell you, so it is a spontaneous issue, or it is a kind of impulse that is being created out of the panic when the people start rushing towards something, and that creates a severe loss of life or maybe the severe injuries to multiple people. So what happened after the celebration or the victory parade of IPL? Those are the situations that can occur if there is a slight impulse which might be created by any specific trigger, but that is going to create a devastating effect, right? Now, whenever there is any question that can come regarding stampede, because this year a large number of stampede that have been observed across the country because of different reasons. There is a need to substantiate your argument with the fact and data. There should be some data that you should keep in order to substantiate your argument in your answer. So for example, there were nearly 4,000 stampede events that were recorded in last 3 decades. So these are the number of events. These are not the death. These are the events. That means these events were there. In each event, there are multiple deaths that are being observed, right? If we talk about last 3 years, more than 3,000 people lost their life in the stampede situation from 2000 to 2022, not 3 years, sorry. Roughly in last 2 decades, there have been this much number of people, those who have died in this. The majority of the stampede took place in the religious gathering, because ज़्यादा gathering वहाँ पर ही होती है, right? In that particular situation, high number of chances are there that whether it is belonging to any religion, there are issues to the loss of life and a lot of other issues that takes place at the religious gathering wala places. Now, try to think that what might be the reason that are driving these particular stampede related situations. So this can be summarized into these particular pointers. First is regarding the human behavior. See, we have to also make and take the responsibility of this particular situations. Why? Because it is the people who are going to these places despite knowing that there will be a large gathering, and then there can be, if there is any kind of panic that is issued or that can be created among the masses, there the masses are going to behave in certain way, and that might lead to the situation of chaos or the stampede. So there is a breakdown of the cooperation. So there are many such theories that are propounded in this particular regard regarding the psychology and socialization. So in that breakdown of the cooperation is being mentioned. So what is the breakdown of cooperation? So it is mentioned in the Mintz theory. So what this theory basically says, that crowd has the tendency to behave in a certain manner. Now till the point of time they are behaving in a certain manner, जैसे ही एक panic situation create होता है, once there is certain trigger, then crowd का जो एक certain behavior था, that behavior breaks down, and then there is a chaos that is being created, and that breaks down the cooperation between the people. I'll give you one example. People are moving in a line, they are moving in a queue in order to worship their devotees, right? Or worship their deity, whosoever religion they belong to, right? Now in that particular case, what happens, that initially the crowd was moving in a row, they are cooperating in order to reach whatever that particular deity or whatever the temple, mosque or any other place is there. Now what will happen, that sometimes because of certain misinformation or some things, there is panic created. Now trigger can be anything, panic can be created because of anything. In that case, what happens, that the breakdown of the cooperation is there. Now previously the crowd which was moving in certain manner, they started moving like free radicals. They started moving in certain manner which is not as per the cooperation, and that creates the issue. And then followed by a lot of issues like the people will start running over each other, that creates the situations like suffocation and even the physical injuries that takes the life. So this is the breakdown of cooperation which is spread because of the trigger like panic situation. Then there is craze, which is the Smeller's theory. Now see, craze is like, there may be craze, maybe you are having some craze for cricket, maybe to certain religious idol, right? होता क्या है कि sometime, suppose करो, if there is a large gathering, there is some individual whose feet you want to touch. Now you know that there is a large gathering over there, but what you are trying to do, what you know, every people want to do, they want to seek their blessing by the physical touching. Now in that particular situation, when everybody is moving for that, there will be some situation comes that if there are no proper arrangements, there may be breakdown of the order, and that is going to create the issue of the stampede, and that is because of the craze. Now people might be aware that there may be issue regarding this, but they still go for that particular thing, and that is the, as per the Smelser's theory, that is the situation or the issue of the craze, right? So this is one such issue regarding the human behavior. Now in both the cases, whether it is the Mintz theory or the Smelser's theory, both the cases there have been people who are behaving in certain manner, whether it is in a way that is going in their favor or not, but the people are behaving in certain manner, right? Now the structural causes can be there. Now these are the simply those causes which are because of the structural issues. Maybe some place where there is no proper arrangement of light, no proper arrangement for evacuation, no separate entry, no separate exit, right? So many such places, public places you might have seen. In these particular situation, if there is maybe a threat of bomb or any other thing, that creates the situation of panic and that creates the structural causes. Now this is being created by the structural issue. Maybe हो सकता है कि exit gate ही बंद कर रखा है permanently. You might have seen many such rest of fire issues were there, where the structural, basically the exit was closed or permanently closed. They were placed certain infrastructure over there, right? Next is the management flaws. Sometimes the people who are on the managing side are having certain flawed management. So there may be miscommunication. For example, there were certain stampede happening at the temples like in Tirupati, when there was some miscommunication that was there, that the ticket window has opened or something like this. When the miscommunication has been done, people rush towards that place and that led to the situation of the stampede, right? Even the crowd flow, that may be there, that can be in the random and the certain manner that creates the situation of panic and that creates the stampede situation. So whether it is sports, whether it is religious festivities, whether it is any other gathering, whether it is movie, whether it is anything, if at that place any of these things is there, this can cause the situation of a stampede, right? So the data and the causes are important in order to substantiate your argument. So the theories can also be quoted, the Mintz theory and the Smelser's theory, which is in this particular regard. Now what are the NDMA guidelines? These are the simple guidelines regarding this. First, there should be the capacity planning. So you should monitor the visitors flow. You should be aware regarding how many people are going to attend this ceremony, because if you are expecting 50, if there are 5,000, obviously there will be a structural breakdown. Ensuring the basic facilities, the people will need the basic sanitation facility, they will need water and all. So those facilities arrangements should be there, otherwise that will create the panic situation. Using multiple routes, so ऐसा नहीं है कि only one place where there will be entry and this place only for exit. If there is like this, there is a mela ground, right? And in that case, suppose karo to enter for this particular mela, there is only one entry and one exit. If there is a fire breaks out in that particular region, you have to come out of that region only. There should be multiple entry exit like this. So if there is any situation at this place, you can use this kind of exit routes. So like this, there should be arrangement of using multiple routes. Then risk and the vulnerability analysis. So you should be having awareness regarding the physical infrastructure. What may be the threat? What may be the risk? How many people you are anticipating, if that is exceeded, whether you have sufficient personals or not, whether you will be able to keep the people in check or not, because there may be certain mischievous elements also who want to propagate these kind of the stampede situation, and in that case, if the resources are not adequate, there will be an issue. Last, then the efficient rescue and the relief. So rescue or relief available hona chahiye. There should be availability of the ambulance in the nearby vicinity, so that if there is any stampede, there should be quick rescue and the relief that can be provided. They develop a course of action. So outlining the options. If there is this thing happen, then what will be the course of action? If there will be further escalation, what will be the course of action? Whether fire brigade is there, whether ambulance is there, these particular things are available or not. Required resources, matching them with the availability. So the human resources availability from the side of the law and order, maintenance wala people, basically the civil servant sides, and apart from that their own personals, those people are matching with the crowd which is coming for the gathering. So all these things should be there in order to assess and having an idea regarding these crowds and the management of that. So these are the NDMA guidelines. Generally, because when UPSC asks the question, they also ask sometime regarding the NDMA guideline kya hai. Discuss the recent measures initiated in disaster management by the government of India, departing from the earlier reactive approach. So previously it used to be reactive, ki ho jayega, then we will see. Now it became proactive, that proactively we have to ensure that first we should not allow these things to happen. If there is anything, that what is the course of action that is there. So in that case, kya disaster management related protocol hai, there you have to tell also about the NDMA guidelines in this particular regard, rescue and relief. Next article is regarding the national capital region has the highest ozone pollution level. So you might have also observed that there have been the rise of pollution at multiple places, right? So from the perspective of GS paper 3, again the environment and ecology, along with that science and tech, this is the important topic because the ozone as a pollutant health impact is a very important thing. Now from prelims and mains both perspective, this is important. Regarding ozone, you might have already seen that this is a molecule consisting of 3 atoms of oxygen, and generally you might have seen the ozone from the perspective of stratosphere, where this is considered as a good ozone which is preventing the ultraviolet rays to enter into the troposphere and the other subsequent layers and on basically on the land, and that is preventing and protecting the life. But when in the troposphere that particular ozone is getting formed, that is acting as a bad ozone or acting as a air or pollutant wala thing, right? So there is a CPCB data which says that the Delhi NCR is worst impacted region as in the country as far as the ozone pollution is concerned, and the second most impacted region in the Mumbai metropolitan region. So this is the region which is having high concentration of the ozone at the troposphere, which is the bad ozone, right? So on the one side the ozone layer in the stratosphere is depleting, which is a issue, and on the other side the troposphere pe ozone is getting increased because of certain kind of chemical reaction, and that is also a issue, right? Now in the troposphere it is a air pollutant, that's why it is a major cause of concern. And when it is acting as a greenhouse gas, that means when the solar radiations are coming and when the long range radiations are going back, that are being absorbed by these ozone, so that is also acting as a greenhouse gas, that is increasing the temperature of the troposphere. So that's why also it is important, and that's why also it is harmful. Now the safe limit has been designated. So there is safe 8 hourly ozone standard is 100 micrograms per cubic meter. So 8 hour के time period में देखा जाएगा that what is the amount and the concentration of the ozone. If it is 100 microgram per cubic meter से ज़्यादा, in that particular case it is considered as harmful for that particular region. While there is 1 hour limit that is there, so within 1 hour concentration कितना है, out of that 8 hour 1 hour में concentration कितना था, because see it is a pollutant which is also having short lifespan, so it is created, it is also simultaneously getting destroyed. But excessive creation is going to create more harmful effects and also the effects on the respiratory system and also the greenhouse gas impact. So while the 1 hour limit is 180 microgram per meter cube, not that important, but just to have an idea regarding this, these are the safe limit. Now when we talk about the ground level ozone, it is a pollutant. So basically it is a secondary pollutant. What is secondary pollutant? Basically secondary pollutant are not exactly emitted from the sources like industry, like vehicles, like any other place. They are not getting directly emitted in their present form. So ozone as ozone is not getting emitted. If the pollutants are maybe, let's say, the carbon monoxide or maybe any other kind of pollutant like the oxides of nitrogen, oxides of sulfur, they are the primary pollutant because they are as it is emitted from, let's say, vehicular emission, from the industrial emission. But the ozone on the other hand is getting formed when there is a chemical reaction. On the one side there are the oxides of nitrogen and on the other sides there are the volatile organic compound. When they are combining, then that is creating the ozone. That means from these kind of primary pollutant, there are secondary pollutant which is created, which is in the form of ozone. Now, what are the sources for the creation of these primary pollutant like the oxides of nitrogen and the volatile organic compound? These are the anthropogenic resources like the transportation, like the vehicular emission, the power plants are there, the residential and the agricultural things are there. Then there are natural resources also, for example, soil-based emission are there. Then the oxides of nitrogen, wildfire. So through anthropogenic like the human-induced emission or also through the emission which is from the natural like the agricultural field, like the wildfire, from these particular places also there are emission of the oxides of the nitrogen or volatile organic compound, right? So whether it is this man-made or anthropogenic or whether it is natural, both the type of pollutant. Now these are the primary pollutant emission. When they combine through the chemical reaction, then they become in the form of ozone, right? Now what is the impact of the ground level ozone? It is very simple. So it is impacting health. So there are the health related issues. So for example, clogging of your lungs, the air will not be able to pass very easily through your lungs. So that creates the situations like bronchitis, right? There are situations like asthma. These are the issues that are being created. From the perspective of climate, it is aggravating further the climate change. It is increasing the concentration of greenhouse gases, and ultimately it is increasing the temperature of that particular region. So absorbs the radiation, which increases the temperature, strong greenhouse gas. Lastly, the agriculture and the ecosystem impact. So basically, when this particular issue is interfering with the photosynthesis, because that is going to create a layer surrounding it, the temperature alteration is there, and that is going to create issues with the ecosystem and the agriculture. This creates issue with photosynthesis. That means plant will not be able to produce their own food, and the stunting of the overall growth of certain species. These are the issues that are being created. So the issue is that on the stratosphere region there has been depletion, but on the troposphere there has been increasing concentration, and that's why there have been major issues that are being caused because of the ozone, right? Next, and the last article for this particular major articles of today's news today is regarding India marked a milestone with the launch of the first fully indigenous 4G, which is 5G ready network. So 4G network ko roll out kiya gaya, which is completely indigenous. That means from the very base system to ultimately last user connectivity, that is entirely developed by India. So from the perspective of again GS paper 3, science and technology, economy, security, it is important. Why science and tech? Because the technological development from economy, because India can even export this technology support through for the development of the radio communication technology for other countries. And security, because it is indigenously developed, and this entire communication ka entire control will be with India. That means India have the indigenous capability, data will be within India, and that's how India can control a lot of issues which could otherwise be compromised, right? That's why it is important. Now, when we talk about the indigenous 4G stack, so this is developed and deployed by the BSNL, and which is developed by the collaboration between, there is CDOT, which has created the core infrastructure. What is basic or the core of this entire technology, which is developed by CDOT? Tejas has created the radio access network, which is the network which is connecting through towers and the last users. Along with that, there are multiple in-between systems. So understand it like this, like if you talk about the core network, these are the highways which are connecting the large cities. And then what Tejas has done the radio access network, which is basically the roads, which are the district roads, which are the state highways, which are the other, which are connecting from that particular main highways, right? And TCS has performed the task of integrating the entire system. So these are the stakeholders. So BSNL have deployed, which is the collaboration between CDOT, Tejas and TCS, right? So this can be a prominent question. Now with this, India has joined the elite network, which is basically the select 5 nation group, which includes the countries like Denmark, Sweden, South Korea and China. So only 4 countries before India have developed their entire stake as far as the 4G is concerned. So there is Denmark, Sweden, South Korea and China. Now when we talk about how that is important, because we have our own indigenous network now, the alteration, modification, changing module, increasing the capability, that can be done by India independently without getting influenced by any other part. And in that case, the 5G rollout, which has already been done in 2022, that can further be boosted with the indigenous capabilities, and later on when 6G technology will be deployed, this is going to further boost the capabilities, right? So fast tracking the adoption of 5G in the indigenous terms and laying the foundation for 6G, that will become easy. Now what is the significance? First is the strategic autonomy. Now this is our own network. Our own control will be there on this. So from the strategic perspective, from the perspective of the data, from the perspective of user control, from the perspective of a lot of things, it will be India's control. So it will be ensuring the data sovereignty for India in this particular context. Next is the cloud native. So basically see, whenever these particular systems are being created, there are small modules which are being created in a larger program. Now suppose karo tomorrow, if you want to upgrade something in this 4G stack, because of the cloud native, one module can be changed by other module without altering the entire framework in order to boost the capabilities, maybe the internet speed badhane ke liye, or maybe shifting from 4G to 5G, it will be easy because the development will be on and above this. There is no need to create the entire new network, right? So that will be there. So it will be enabling the rapid upgrade, scalability, further future migrations whenever the technological deployment is needed. Improving the accessibility, because now this is India's network, indigenous network. Comparatively, we are having an awareness regarding this, and we can scale up. We can provide the connectivity to those regions also which were not previously connected, and through this deployment it is going to be done, right? So it can benefit the tribal region, remote village, hilly areas where previously those regions were not connected with the communication or the radio access network. Next is the supply chain development. What is supply chain? From the very scratch, from the very raw material to the last mile connectivity, entire thing is part of the supply chain. So when we are talking about the entire development of this particular 4G stack in India, in that case, it is going to boost the employment. It is going to boost the export as far as the technological collaborations are concerned, in order to support the network related support to different countries of the global south, related to the first article that we have discussed regarding global south. So employment, strengthening supplier ecosystem, all these things can get a boost, and even there can be a skilled workforce that can be specifically trained in this particular regard with the or in the context of the 4G stack, right? Lastly, technological capabilities. Now, India itself have demonstrated the technological capabilities that we are capable ourselves in order to develop these kind of system. So it joined the among the select 5 nations, which includes Denmark, Sweden, South Korea and China. So that's what is the major feat as far as the India is concerned. Now with this, India claims the sovereignty as far as the 4 generational network is concerned. Then apart from that, India can further scale up, India can boost the speed, India can upgrade to 5G also in future, and even talk about the 6Gs. It's 6G in the later on time period. Accessibility bhi badhegi, supply chain development is also there, technological capability is also there. So in all the fronts, it is going to benefit, right? Now, when we talk about the 5G and 6G technologies, basically 5G has already been rolled out since 2022, right? And at all the states and UT, so 28 states, it is operational, even including the 8 UTs. Apart from that, 6G technology is under current development. So 6G ke baare mein abhi research and development is already going on, and it is said that roughly by 2030 there can be a rollout of 6G in this particular regard. Now there are certain initiatives that the government of India has launched regarding the 6G and the research and development. There is Bharat 6G vision which talks about the idea regarding how inclusive, accessible this particular network can be, how this can be a game changer for the entire communication field. Establishment of the 100 5G labs in the academic institutions, that means to collaborate with the academic institution to nurture the talent in this communication regard. Lastly, facilitating the Bharat 6G Alliance. Now, alliance mein basically there are multiple stakeholders. So there are industry, there is academia, there are research and development institutions. So they are collaborating in order to prepare the India specific 6G plan and 6G rollout. And here, this particular 4G plan, which India has developed, 4G stack that India has developed, is very, very important, and that is going to play a very important role. Clear hai? Okay? So this is regarding the recent indigenous 4G stack of India. Next article is regarding the personality in news, which is Rani Rashmoni. The lifespan was from 1793 to 1861. Right. Now, recently there have been the PM paid tribute to Rani Rashmoni on her birthday. That's why that particular personality is important. And also, see, in the context of freedom, now we selectively talk about certain personality, and now UPSC has also understood that there are many such personalities which have to be talked about, and that's why every year you will see certain personalities which you don't get exactly in the conventional books. That's why having an idea regarding these particular event is very, very important. So when we talk about Rani Rashmoni, a prominent figure as far as the modern India is concerned, at the time period when the British East India Company was engaging in that particular region of Bengal and trying to put its foot and solidified its foot in that particular region of Bengal. So she belongs to the region of Bengal. So her life story goes like this, that she was born and brought up in a poor family, but then later on married to a zamindar, and after the death of her husband, the state, she represented that particular state that was under her control, and then she contributed significantly for as a charity in order to uplift the life of people. That's why she was also provided with this particular title of Rani or the Queen, right? So in the context of the cultural contribution, religious contribution mein, she established Dakshineshwar Kali temple that you can see in the outskirts of Kolkata. So this temple is very significant because later on she also patronized a prominent personality, Ramakrishna Paramhans, and his disciple Swami Vivekananda established the Ramakrishna mission after this. So Dakshineshwar Kali Mandir was patronized by her and contributed by her. Apart from that, in her social contribution, she also voiced against a lot of evil, whether it is sati, whether it is polygamy, whether it is child marriage, whether it is non-widow, non-remarriages, right? For all these things she voiced, even for the educational support. So she also funded the universities, she also funded the construction of ghats, she also funded the libraries, and also basically entire aspect mein you can talk about whether it is compassion, whether it is the development of the humanity or supporting humanity, in all ways mein she had supported. So she had also presented the bill against the polygamy to the East India Company in order to abolish the polygamy. Also she supported the social reformers like Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, both belong to the similar regions, right? So this is the personality of Rani Rashmoni, very important personality from the modern India. Okay, so next we are going to discuss regarding certain quick updates. So let's start the discussion of the quick updates. The first in this is the National Security Act NSA of 1980. So recently there have been the protests for the statehood and the special category status to Ladakh region, right? So Sonam Wangchuk, who was the leading the movement of the statehood and the protection under the 6th schedule for Ladakh, has been detained under the National Security Act of 1980. So NSA, which is the act which empowers both central and the state government in order to detain certain person if that particular person prejudice the defense of India, relation with the foreign power, security of India, maintenance of peace and order, and the essential supplies. So it is providing power to both center and the state. The division of the subjects are different. For example, for defense, foreign relations, security of India, in that case it is generally empowering the state in order to detain that individual. For maintenance of public order and essential supply ko secure karne ke liye, state can also detain. Now who is the official who is basically provided power under this act? It is the district magistrate and the police commissioner with the prior orders of detention that can detain that particular individual. Now the grounds of detention mainly says that those should be communicated to the person who has been detained. So there has been 5 days ka time period for which the ground of detention should be told to that person ki bhai why that particular person is getting detained, and in the special cases it can be up to 15 days. So 5 to 15 days ka time period is available regarding the conveying of the reasons and the causes of detention. The next is regarding PM E-Drive. Already in certain previous discussions we have discussed regarding PM E-Drive. So this is the initiative of the Ministry of Heavy Industries. Now the Ministry of Heavy Industries have issued the operation guideline for the deployment of the EB public charging station under the PM E-Drive scheme. Now, this PM E-Drive schemes, whenever schemes comes, the ministry is important. So, Ministry of the Heavy Industries, important industry in this particular regard. Now, what is the purpose? Purpose is to basically roll out and further accelerate the electric vehicle adoption and development of the supporting infrastructure, whether it is charging infrastructure across the country. Now, how you are going to support? Obviously, there will be certain financial support that will be provided. So, there will be subsidies and the incentives will be provided in order to take those particular vehicle, whether it is 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, then ambulance, e-truck, e-buses, and the other emerging EVs. Next, there are grant even. See, because when you will utilize these particular EV, you will need other infrastructure also, whether it is charging infrastructure, whether it is other supporting infrastructure, whether it is testing capability centers, right? So the grants is also being provided for the capital assets creation, because those who are going to create the infrastructure, not procuring, but creating the capital infrastructure, those should also be incentivized, right? That's why the grants also can be are provided in the creation of the capital assets. Next is regarding AstroSat. So this particular mission of ISRO has completed 10 years, right? So India's first dedicated space astronomy observatory, AstroSat, completes a decade of operation. So it was basically like a satellite launched in the space, but this is a observatory which is observing distant events, whether it is the birth of a star or any other high energy event that is being observed by this AstroSat, which is placed by ISRO. Now this is the first dedicated Indian astronomy mission aimed at studying the celestial sources in X-ray, optical and UV spectral bands simultaneously. So multiple bands may it can observe the event. Now simultaneous multi-wave observations. Now it was launched in a 650 kilometer orbit, not that important, but just low Earth orbit में launch किया गया था by PSLV C30 from Sriharikota, which is also known as the workhorse of ISRO. Now objective क्या था? Objective is to understand, observe the distant events, right, and having an idea about those, that how the universe is functioning. So understanding the high energy activities, the study of the star birth region, high energy processes like the explosion of star also sometimes, right, detecting the new briefly bright X-ray sources in the sky. So basically it is acting as a observatory for the universe for observing the distant event, not the Earth observatory, it is for the observing of distant events. Next is regarding acoustic vehicle alerting system. So Ministry of Transport and Highway mandated the draft notification for all new private and the commercial EVs to be fitted with the acoustic vehicle alerting system. Now simply if I tell you, this is the beep beep of that particular EVs. Generally in EVs, what problem is that they do not create much sound. So when the pedestrian are moving, if the EV passes by without horn or some kind of like that particular means that will alert you that there is a vehicle coming, in that case the chances are of accident are high if that particular system is not there. So in that case, there is a safety feature that emits the varying sound based upon the varying speed of the external speaker to alert the pedestrian about the presence. So to some extent, it is like generally when you are driving any other vehicle, it creates some noise. So like this, based upon the speed, there will be some noise, not exactly the beep, but yes, there will be certain noise that will be created that will make you aware that some vehicle is passing by, right? So US, Japan, some EU nations that have mandated regarding its use. So this is regarding the acoustic vehicle alerting system. Swachh Shahar Jodi. So Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs has launched the Swachh Shahar Jodi. Now this is Shahar Jodi means it is a basically coupling of certain cities, those which are the mentor cities which have performed well as far as the Swachh Bharat mission are concerned, and then other cities which have not performed well but they are the aspiring states which are the mentees. So that will be a collaboration between the mentors which are the high performing states, districts, and comparatively lower performing districts, right? It is implemented under the Swachh Bharat Mission Urban. It is a structured mentorship and collaboration program involving 72 mentor cities and 200 mentee cities. So these are the high performing cities which have functioned better, where the system isn't at place regarding how to deal with the issues of the sanitation and the other things. Mentee cities are basically those jahan par issues hai, right? And that's why there is a collaboration in the form of Swachh Shahar Jodi, which is the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Now foster the knowledge, experience sharing, peer learning, transforming the best practices. So this is regarding the Swachh Shahar Jodi. Next is SODAR, sound detection and ranging system. So you might have heard of already sonar, radar, right? So it is SODAR, which is the sound detection and ranging. So in this, if I tell you the simple function, so this will be the instrument from where there will be different frequency waves will be emitted to the atmosphere, specifically the lower atmosphere or the troposphere. Then there will be reflection based upon the winds speed, or basically maybe from cloud or any other things. There will be scattering of that particular जो sound waves you will like emit, and that particular waves will be received at different station, and based upon changed frequency of that wave, based upon the alteration, attenuation of that particular wave, you will be able to get that what is the wind speed, what are the other factors that are there in the atmosphere, right? So in order to understand the situation of atmosphere, other factors within that particular atmosphere, this SODAR is being used. So sound detection and ranging system facility has been inaugurated in India Meteorological Department, IMD, Delhi. It was developed and designed and developed by CSIR Advanced Material and Process Research Institute, AMPRI, Bhopal. Now what is the functioning? It works by sending sound pulses, ठीक है, sound waves छोड़ेंगे, and then subsequently monitoring the intensity and frequency of the return signal. How radar works? You will basically send certain light and then based upon that particular wave जो receive होगी, that particular wave के basis पे you are going to get the distance. Similarly here you are going to get the idea regarding the conditions. So it determines the lower atmosphere wind profile, temperature structure. So all these things will be able to get, because this intensity and frequency will be changed in the returned wave as compared to the original wave, and that will give you an idea regarding this alteration, right? So the information of the height of inversion, height of the fog layer, strength of the turbulence, all these things will be available through this. Now NASA ISRO synthetic aperture radar NISAR, which was recently launched, so it has sent its first radar image of the Earth surface. So it is a Earth observing satellite, which is basically in order to provide an idea regarding a lot of things regarding observation of the Earth, different phenomena regarding the water level and all, right? So it is the world's first Earth observation satellite, which is having the 2 frequency synthetic aperture radar. There is the L band and then there is a S band on the same platform. So it is sent in the sun synchronous orbit or the polar orbit. So it observe the place at the same time every time. मतलब जैसे होता है ना कि this is synchronized with the movement. So in that particular case, what happens basically that at a same place at the same time of day again it is repeating its presence. तो एक place को multiple times ये visit करता है at the same point of time. In that case, it is observing the changes accordingly, right? So in that case, it is delivering the high resolution all weather day night imagery of the Earth's land and the ice surfaces. Application क्या है? Disaster management, climate monitoring. So it will alter the changes. What are the changes being observed at that place over a period of time, and that will give you an idea that what are the changes taking place. So it was for the first time GSLV vehicle was used in order to place a satellite in the sun synchronous polar orbit. Generally PSLV is being used. Here in this case GSLV was used. The last article is regarding the ways and means advances. So the RBI has recently set the WMA limit for the central government for the second half of 25-26. Simply, what is the ways and means advances? So generally hota kya, see, the money is coming to government at different forms, maybe through taxes, maybe through other acquisitions, right? That may be varied time period पे वो money आ रही है, but the salaries have to be paid, many other payments have to be paid on a certain time period. So there may be sometime mismatch between the receipt and the payment that are due. That's why in order to deal with that situation, ways and means advances can be utilized. So government takes the money from RBI in the form of ways and means advances. Limit कौन set करता है? Limit is being set by RBI in consultation with government. Now WMA is a temporary advance given by RBI to the central government to cover mismatch of the receipt and the payment. Receipt and the payment. Not only to center, even to state, even to UTs, these particular funds are available. From where it is getting power? RBI Act of 1934. What is the interest rate? It is basically based upon the repo rate. However, beyond this limit, if further money has to be taken, it is above certain percentage above the repo rate that will be there. Now, is there a need for repayment? Obviously, yes. So, within 3 months, you have to repay the entire money. So it is for the short-term monetary adjustment, this particular money is being provided. Clear? So with this, we have completed the news today discussion for the 28th and the 29th September. I hope that whatever I have discussed is clear to you, right? Certain articles we have discussed in a more elaborated manner because they needed to be covered in that extent, right? Now there are certain questions that must be there on your screen. Attempt those and also visit the daily digital current affairs portal, and then there are certain other features on that portal. Try to access that. We'll meet again in separate set of discussion. Okay? Thank you everyone. Have a great day.